Welcome to the Little Brain Campaign. I'm Dr. Lauren LaRose, a child and adolescent psychiatrist.
And I'm Jessica Eisenstadt, a licensed professional counselor.
We're here to be straight with you about children's mental health.
And we're not afraid to challenge the trends that are out there about anything related to kids.
And we're not afraid to challenge each other either.
If you're looking to be validated from two moms that are in the trenches, you're in the right spot.
Yep, no fluff here. Just some honest conversation with a side of sarcasm.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Big Brains. Thanks for joining us on the Little Brain Campaign. We are your hosts, Lauren
and Jessica.
We have with us today Pam Pereira. So Pam, please go ahead and give us a little elevator pitch about what you do.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. So I'm a speech language pathologist. That occupation can do a whole lot of things. I specialize in pediatrics, which can include communication, supporting communication, language, speech, feeding. As a whole, speech pathology can work on like voice, assistive technology to help with communication. There's a wide range for speech pathology, but I specifically work with the pediatric population. Right now I work in a children's hospital, but I've worked in a variety of settings, outpatient, early intervention, schools, and I've also worked in multiple states. Right now I'm in New Jersey, but I spent a wonderful year and a half in New Orleans.
Yes, so this is my husband Rick's cousin, might as well be sister at this point.
Aww.
So same. So we are very close, and we had the pleasure of having she and her husband here for about a year and a half. And this is kind of the segue that I wanted to get to. So I want to know your experience working here in New Orleans in home and clinic and school settings, and how it compares to your experience doing the same thing in New Jersey.
Yeah, so right before COVID, I started doing early intervention in New Jersey, and state by state, it's a little different. In Louisiana, it's called Early Steps. I'm sure you guys are familiar, but for the listeners, but it's the same thing, early intervention, 0 to 3. I started working through early intervention in New Jersey right before COVID, and I only did it for a few months before COVID hit. But then in Louisiana, all I did was early steps. So that can be working with kids at home, at school, in a clinic. The goal of it, though, is working with them in their natural environment. So as often as possible, it's great to catch the kids at home. I will say the biggest difference I can think of right away, even though my time doing it in New Jersey was brief, was that in New Orleans, a lot of the times I was in daycare. At least I would say at least like 60-40% of the time was in the daycare setting, which was very enlightening to see just what is expected of our little ones on a day-to-day basis, and how as a provider coming into the school for a very short period of time in the whole week, how you can best support them.
Yeah. So I guess specifically, what academic and behavioral expectation differences did you see here, like in daycares or schools?
Yeah. And I don't know if it varies that much by state, but what I did see in New Orleans, there were high expectations for like the types of things a kid could pay attention to in the classroom, things that developmentally is not expected yet of their communication. Like, for example, trying to get a kid to follow like a multi-step direction before, like while transitioning to a task. Like, okay, everybody, in 1 minute, we're going to clean up. First of all, for like a 2-year-old, that is like, what, that's a complex sentence, right? I don't know what that means. And then, okay, now we're cleaning up. Everybody participate in cleanup, which is like not always realistic to get everybody to participate in the cleanup. And okay. So like, as an example, the direction could be like, clean up the cars and then go wash your hands and then go sit at the table. And like, this kid is 2 years old. 2-year-olds are not expected to follow multi-step unrelated directions. So like, what are they going to do? They didn't understand it. They're going to wander off.
Yeah, right. And then when the 2-year-old wanders off, what response would you see from like staff?
So-and-so, were you not listening? Like, I told you, this is what we're supposed to be doing. Like, of course, there's a wide range of like types of teachers and everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just going to like repeat the instruction, right? That they didn't understand the first time, and they're still not going to understand when you repeat it in the same way. What might be appropriate, and some teachers would do, is like, let me simplify it, like break it down. Now I'm going to break it down to like a one step. But sometimes it would be like, fed up. This kid never follows directions. They're not listening. And they just like help them along to do to complete the transition or follow the direction. And then they're kind of just doing it like passively, and they don't really understand what they're doing or were asked to do.
So it's like if the adults have unrealistic expectations for the kids, then there's going to be more problem behaviors, right?
Yeah. Or perception, like
perception of problem behavior. Yeah, that's why I'm putting it in quotes. Problem behaviors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you have any ideas about why that was a problem here, but maybe it's not a problem elsewhere?
You know, I have not spent a lot of time in daycares in this area. So
so maybe it is a problem
I think
elsewhere.
I would guess that it's a problem everywhere, truthfully.
Okay.
I wish I could say, like, I wish I could do the same experience in both places and be able to have like a direct comparison. That would be really cool. And someone should study that, like state by state, what are the differences and expectations? I don't know if this varies a lot, but like, I felt like circle time, the expectations for circle time were huge. Like, okay, room of 20 plus kids. I mean, less than 20 if you're lucky, if you can get, be in a school like that. Let's sit on the floor for 30 minutes and I want you to attend to like, I have a big feeling about teaching littles like shapes, colors, numbers, letters before teaching them like common objects and verbs and like how to request. And a lot of kids are not geared to be understanding those concepts when they're that little. So like, okay, let's sit. And those are academic things. Like they're going to get that when they get to like 5. That's appropriate.
Right.
So like, let's sit on the floor and I want you to attend to all these concepts or maybe like label things on picture cards. And all of a sudden, so-and-so is not sitting still in circle time. I would get a lot of, that would be a lot of complaints going into a school. It's like, they will not attend to circle time. And can you like push in? So like for the audience who may not know, therapists can do like push in or pull out, pull out one-on-one, individualized, and then push in, like, let me help support the skill within the classroom. And there's a time and a place for both. And sometimes push in during something like circle time can be really effective. And other times I was just like helping the kids sit still and we weren't doing anything.
Yeah. Right.
So it sounds like you were having a lot of maybe inappropriate referrals.
Oh, for sure.
For your services?
Yeah. There were definitely, and I would gather that they increased a lot after COVID.
Yeah.
So what would you, okay, so, you're pushing in because one of your clients can't sit still. And so now you're like data gathering because you're observing, right, how the environment's impacting the kid. What do you do with, like, what do you do? Like with the teachers?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's hard to, it's hard to navigate. Like I always try to wait a little bit and develop a little bit of a rapport first with the teachers. Cause if I just like come in day one, I'm like, all right, this is wrong. Got to change this, got to do that, whatever. For the particular kid I might be working with, right? Like I'm not going to be well received. So for a little while, I would try to just get comfortable with each other and help out in any way that I could with it. And then eventually I would maybe give suggestions about like, okay, specifically for this kid, maybe it's not an appropriate ask. Like, of course I can't tell a teacher, like change the entire structure of their day to day. But for the kid that I specifically am there for, I would try to give suggestions about like, what type of language does it seem like they're actually able to understand at this point. And I don't know, like if you're asking them a question in circle time, here's how they might better comprehend it and be able to respond. A lot of the complaints would come from like transitions, like the kid transitions and playing with peers. Those would be a lot of the, and I think I would guess this is across the board, but I feel like people are expecting kids to engage in play that is way beyond what they should be doing at their age, like sharing and turn taking.
Yeah.
That it like for, I mean, I'm going based off of mainly like 2-year-olds when I was doing that early steps, but like 2-year-olds are not supposed to be sharing toys.
Right.
This like nuclear classroom, right? So, but teachers can only like do so much. So then it's like, what do you do with admin? Like, how do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, like, that each class would benefit from a full like facelift restructure of like expectations, right? And it's up to the admin to like get bought in so that they would do that. So how would you communicate with like directors and things like that about your observations?
Yeah. I had one time where admin was really positively involved and wanted to help come up with like a behavior plan for a child that I was seeing.
How old?
Almost 3. Yeah, a behavior plan for a,
Get the fuck out. But
yeah. So we taught, which SLPs don't come up with behavior plans, right? But I was seeing this.
Right.
So
Correct.
It's like, I'm not, that's outside of my scope.
Yeah,
but basically what was happening was this child was delayed, like appropriate referral required services, delayed in play and communication. Play generally should be like a little bit above communication. And for this one, the play was pretty behind. And so
what is that? So kind of tell people what that looked like. How do you know
it
it
could
was
look
behind?
like? So for example, this class they were mostly 3-year-olds at this point in the class. And like by 3, you would want to see like parallel play. So like for sure see parallel play. The kids like sitting beside each other. Maybe they're not sharing, but they're all playing. They're sharing the space and play. They all kind of have a toy in their hand. And maybe even at that point, you'd start to see some associative play. So like maybe they're starting to interface a little bit in the play. Maybe a couple instances of turn taking, maybe. Maybe, yes. But this child was kind of still in like solitary play and was mainly interested in like running around, like tag.
Yeah.
Which, time and a place for that. Good to like let out all the energy that's built up sitting in circle time. And but what was happening was someone might try to interact with the kid and the child didn't really understand the language coming out or from the peer even. Or the kid might come up and try to take the thing that the child was playing with, right? And okay, I don't have the words to tell you no, stop. It's my turn, right? So I'm gonna get mad and I'm gonna throw it or I'm gonna flail or whatever it is. And the family kept getting phone calls like so-and-so threw something at this kid and they got to go home. Right. So, okay, now like, what do we do in this situation?
And it's like, did they throw it at the kid or did the kid was in the way?
I think they
know what I mean?
Yes, I think that's what it was.
They threw a toy.
They were mad.
They threw a toy. And like, it was like in proximity to a child.
Yes. And like, bummer, sure. If it hits the other kid, that's not ideal. But like, it wasn't a malicious act.
No.
Right.
But also, if it was, it's like cool, teachable moment.
Still
teachable moment.
Still not like still not outside the norms of development.
No.
Right.
And
Right.
it's like, manage it in the room.
Mhm.
Like, this is a great space to teach about things that happen on purpose or an accident. Was that safe or unsafe? Is that expected or unexpected? Kind of, you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, and like, what does sending home do?
Right. Exactly. If anything,
Reinforces.
like you might be reinforcing it.
Reinforces,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
continue.
Now
I'm
Yeah.
it's
Keep
sorry.
like,
going.
We
oh,
go on
great.
and
Now
on
I
Oh
get
my
to go
God.
home and be with my mom or,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Let me keep throwing this thing.
Yeah.
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 Anyways, keep going,
Yeah.
Pam.
Sorry.
And so, and I don't think the way that it was responded to is appropriate, right? It was like, I'm going to
Mhm.
remove this kid completely from the environment without a discussion, like not a discussion,
Yeah.
right? Like they're two, we're not having a discussion, but like,
Yeah.
yes, was that safe? Was that unsafe? Like basically
Mhm.
trying to identify some like key concepts that the kid might understand
Mhm.
and resetting, right?
Mhm.
Rather than just like directly
Like,
removing
try
the kid.
again.
And yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
So
we
this
worked on
family was
play.
getting
Yes. So
called.
this family is getting
Yeah.
called, like, gotta pick your kid up. And what parent can keep leaving work in the middle of the day to go pick up their kid? And now you have your, like, you can't, I
Can't
can't even
work.
Nope.
imagine. I can't even imagine, right?
No.
So they wanted to come up with they wanted to come up with a behavior plan. And I didn't think that this child needed a behavioral therapist. I didn't think that
Mm-hmm.
was
Right.
necessary. So that was an example where I
Mm.
said that, like,
Yeah.
I don't think we need to get behavioral therapy involved. I
Yeah.
think this child's play and communication are delayed, and that's why we're doing these therapies. Uh, so I'm going to come, and I'm going to come during play times. Like,
Yeah.
this is where it's a
Unstructured
good,
is
yes,
difficult.
like,
Mhm.
let me talk to the teachers and find out what your daily schedule is. And, this school did actually a really great job of having like structured stations for play and like themes for their activities. I really liked the setup with all this stuff. So, okay, that's when I would come. And then making sure that I was there during a transition, that was also difficult.
Mhm. Mhm.
So a lot of times I would try to foster like okay, I had the child that I was working with, but let me like pull another peer that
Mhm.
I think
Could trigger him.
could either trigger or be like a positive thing that then could like
Yeah.
teach like a good interaction,
Mhm.
or just
Yeah.
wait and see like who came up to the kid
Yeah.
on their own, right? Um, and then try and here and there be like, oh, I think so and so might want to turn. Let
Mhm.
me give you like a visual for a transition, you know, 10
Mhm.
seconds, not like 1 minute or 2 minutes, because like
Yeah.
then you're going to forget by then. And
Mhm.
then
Right.
so and so is going to take a turn. And then you're going to get a turn again, right? And
Mhm.
maybe a few months of doing push in and trying to support this play. And then also giving family suggestions of like, here are things that you could do at home to work on
Yeah.
play. Um, and then the behaviors went away, right? Because like
Mm.
it wasn't a behavior, like behaviors are always a symptom of something else, right? Like
Yep.
Correct.
let's get to the
What's the
culprit of this.
function?
Yes. What's
Mhm.
underlying.
And like that, like the things that you implemented are things that like staff should know
Mm-hmm.
already, you know?
Yeah.
So how did you, I mean, you did it because, you did it. But like, did you communicate to like the higher ups that like there's a gap here, like there's a need for continuing education, professional development
Mm.
about behaviors and expectations?
I wish I did. I wish
Okay.
that I did. That would have been great. I think,
Well, it's not your job to. I
yeah,
just
but I
didn't
know,
know
I
like
think
if
that
it
would be
came up.
great. I think that is something that would be really helpful as someone that, I traveled around to like a whole bunch of different schools. I think that if I
Yeah.
were at one or maybe
Yeah.
like 1 to 5 schools,
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
that would be really appropriate. And like for anyone listening who does have that opportunity, like
Yeah.
that experience, I think that would be really helpful. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that can be part of like the struggle as an early intervention or early steps therapist is like you're at one place for 45 to 60 minutes and you try and do like a 5 minute wrap up, if that, right? Because also, like, I can't always pull the teacher for that long for one of their
Mhm.
however many kids. and then you're on to the
Yeah.
next. So like I do think that's a little bit of a flaw,
Barrier.
yeah, and a barrier to
Yeah.
like the system is, and then
hmm
you gotta
Time.
get, yes, exactly. How, and
It's like quantity over quality.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like get all the people in, and it's like there aren't enough like early step providers to support the like quantity of need. And so what
Right.
happens is the like, I don't know, whatever X number of providers there are now are overwhelmed with like a real unrealistic caseload. And so they're not able to give quality work. Well, everyone's giving quality work, but like not able to tend to the whole picture
Right.
because they
Yeah.
don't have time.
Not taking
Or,
like
get
full
to the root of
advantage
it.
of their
Yes.
skill
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, and again, I don't know how this varies state by state, but I knew some providers down there who maybe they were working with like kids that were a little older, but they would have to see, they would be seeing like, I don't know, 6 kids at a time in a group for
Yeah.
speech therapy.
Whoa.
How is
No.
that? How are you gonna?
Yeah.
Maybe not sit. I mean, maybe a little less, maybe 3, maybe 4, but still, like you can't target
Yeah.
their individualized goal
No.
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 and 30
And
minutes.
that's in schools too. Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Especially with young kids.
No, yeah. So like and this is like no like shade on schools or whatever, or anyways, when I was working at the school I was working for, they had a SLP on staff, or they had 2, and they would run like groups, like 3 or 4 kids, 30 minutes, like on the IEP, it was like 30 minutes weekly or 30 minutes twice a week, rarely. And so it's like you got the transition from class to the space where you're providing the service, and then you're giving it. Yeah, you can't individualize it.
No.
No.
And it's like there's only so much you can really do, and it's 20 to 25 minutes, let's be real,
Yeah.
because you get in and then you do like a little like greet, that has nothing to do with the goal on the IEP, and then like little behaviors will pop up, and then you do like an outro or like whatever, or like fun activity. So anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fortunately, I think with early steps, it's one-on-one. At least it should be. I don't know if everyone does it one-on-one, but it's supposed to be one-on-one. And you get like 45 to 60 minutes. It's supposed to be 45 minutes of treatment time, and then the rest of it is spent like giving education to families, if you're in the school, like suggestions to teachers, and then like 10 minutes to document, and then you go. But
Yeah.
luckily it is a longer session when they are younger than 3. But then, later when they still need those services, everyone's so thin. And also there's just not enough therapists. Like I was getting messages, calls, texts, emails, whatever, all the time. Like, can you pick up this kid? Can you pick up this kid? And and like, what about when the kid has an IFSP, their individualized family service plan is set up, and they say, okay, this kid needs a PT, but there aren't any available.
Right.
Yeah.
There were like 3, I think, PTs in
Orleans.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Maybe even less in Orleans. I think that was in Metairie that there were.
No, so was Jeff.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's like interesting though. So like, so this is hypothetical. I'm just thinking. So like, okay, so PT, that's also, so like in a school would be adapted physical education. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's like what it's classified under on an IEP, I think.
Yeah.
Something
On
like
the
that.
IFSP, I think it's just physical.
PT.
Yeah, I think so.
But like, if you can't, if it's a service that a kid needs, and you can't provide the service, like, then what?
Right.
What do you do?
What do you do?
Just don't get the service,
Right.
You
Like,
just don't
like,
get the
and then
service.
who's held accountable? Also,
yeah, like you're constantly
right?
reaching out to the service coordinator, and the service coordinator is like, I've reached out to everyone I know. So if it's a family that has the means, they'll go for outpatient therapy. But like a lot of people don't have that ability, and they have wait lists too.
Yeah. Lots of wait lists.
Yeah.
But like that's I think that's like something that people don't understand is like when
Yeah.
you have an IEP, like you have these rights, like through the IEP to these
No one
services,
does.
but that doesn't mean that you are going to get the services.
Right.
Like the school might not have access to that.
Yeah.
You know, So it's like, even though you have the right and the need, it doesn't mean that it's there.
Yeah.
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 And then
Which is
like,
sad.
It
it
is sad.
is. I don't even,
It's super
And
sad.
that's why they're
yeah.
asking therapists to do these groups, because it's like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to
Get them in.
get
Yeah.
200
The only
kids
way to do
Turnover.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want to know, and this is really for like teachers, how do like speech delays impact a kid's ability to meet behavioral expectations and academic expectations
Yeah.
and absorb academic material?
Yeah. So if you have a child with a receptive and expressive language delay, right? Receptive, like,
Tell the people what that
yeah,
means.
like receptive language is how do you understand the language being presented to you? And then expressive is talking. So
Yeah.
you can have one, you can just have a receptive delay, which is less common. You can just have an expressive language delay. You can have a mixture. If you have a combo, so that's what I was talking about, like they would call it like a mixed receptive and expressive language delay. As far as it would impact behavior, like if you're presenting a question to a kid, or let's say it's like story time, and you want the kid to sit and listen to the story, and it's just, I mean, maybe there's a visual, right? But they're like sitting far away and they can't really see it. And then the auditory, like they're hearing the story, but they're 2 or 3 years old and they're not comprehending a full story like that. And then at the end of it, the teacher might say like, okay, so-and-so, or even if they're older, right? That's still a hard task. Like, okay, so-and-so, what did the,
Checking for
yeah,
understanding.
like let's ask a reading comprehension question about it, right? And then the kid, however the kid might respond, they might feel badly and I don't know, escape the situation, or yeah, like who knows how they're going to respond if they just don't understand, and they weren't even able to like process the story time part, right? So like the question that you ask, like maybe they can understand the language in the question, but they're not connecting the dots, right? So like receptively, there's a lot of things that can be presented. It can be like a story, it can be just following directions, simple questions that can be asked, concepts like time concepts, or things that like a lot of kids don't understand until like 4 or 5 years old. Like tomorrow, bring this thing to class, like a lot of kids don't understand what tomorrow means, right? And every kid's gonna show their lack of understanding in a different way. Like some kids just shut down and don't do anything, don't say anything, don't show it in any way. And then clearly other kids are going to show it in a lot of different ways.
Right. So if you have a kid who, I mean, let's take Rhodes, my son, for example. So like Rhodes receptively is like, and correct me if I don't use the right words, receptively is like higher or like more developmentally on target than he is expressively. So, I mean, you've been around him. Like, what have you, because of that delay, how would that then impact his ability to meet like classroom expectations?
Yeah. So in preschool, I do feel like the expressive language that's expected, of course, varies school to school, right? But I think at that age, so much of it is like socially what is going on in their environment, like that like pragmatic language stuff, right? So if it's a child like maybe Rhodes who like couldn't express like, I want to do this thing, or I want to turn with that thing, right? And no one's understanding me when I'm trying to communicate it. No one's understanding me. So I'm going to melt down. I'm going to throw a fit. I'm going to fall on the floor. I'm going to throw something. I'm not talking about Rhodes. I'm just like naming behaviors, right? Like I'm going to show it in certain, maybe, I don't know. Some kids do like self-harm stuff, right? Like some kids pull their hair and scratch and hit, right? Bite, all these things that just because someone couldn't understand what I was trying to say. That's super
Yeah.
frustrating.
Right. And so if you have a teacher or whatever staff who like aren't like knowledgeable or like don't have like I don't know,
Like, what could we
I don't know,
suggest for them?
knowledge.
Training.
Yeah.
Like if they don't know, if they don't have knowledge about it, then they could see that behavioral consequence as not even being connected. You know what I mean? Like they may be like, God, he just had a big reaction to a small problem. Oh, it's a
Right.
behavior issue. When it's like, well, if you understood speech, how speech impacts
Right.
whatever, like interactions or regulation, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it gets treated as this like
Yeah, I'm not thinking that.
like oppositional or like volitional behavior, and like they're choosing to have
Yeah.
an outburst, be difficult, be argumentative, whatever, instead of like they're really struggling.
Yeah, they can't
Communicate.
that like they know what they're asking, but they can't say it
Yeah.
because of that whatever, and like teachers not understanding that and then accommodating.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like what do you think would help?
I think if maybe there was more like general knowledge about how to maybe like scaffold, like cue the kid so that you can determine what they need. And some teachers are really great at this and then some are not, right? But if it's a child that's clearly trying to communicate something, probably not just being like, I don't know what you're saying, I'm walking away, right?
Yeah.
But and I also don't think asking like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Right? Like open-ended yes, no is also not the answer because now you're both just getting frustrated. But maybe trying to like show two things or simplify it for the kid. Like, okay, I know you are trying so hard. You are doing such a good job trying to communicate or tell me what you want, right? Not communicate. Who knows what that means, right? But I know you're trying to tell me what you want. I know it's hard. I don't know what toy you want to play with right now, but I have two things here that you can play with, right? And hopefully when you're 3 months into the year, you know the kid's interests, hopefully earlier than that. So I've got these crayons and this picture you can color, or I've got this animal, I've got this barn and these animal toys. Which one do you want to play with?
Yeah. And I like that too, because it's also just because the kid wants the mermaid, you know, and he's not getting it because he thinks it's, you know, because he's not like communicating it or whatever. But also maybe you can't get the mermaid because your friend's playing with the mermaid. So now you're like also in tandem teaching like keeping small
Frustration
things small.
tolerance.
Yeah. Like flexibility.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no big. Like, ugh, I really want that mermaid. In my head, I'm thinking whatever about the reason why, but like, here are my options, and I'm going to pick one of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like a lot. I mean, it's a lot of skill.
And then you'd want to
Teaching a lot of skill.
and then some as like then a speech therapist coming in, you might be like, oh, hey, I love how you gave them choices and they pointed to the one they wanted, but I actually want them to express it. Right. So always trying to see where the kid's at and maybe try to push it like one level above that. Like, and then, and no, I don't want the kid to say, I want the animal barn, please. Right. But like, maybe you can try to get them to say, even if it's just like an approximation, animal, moo, whatever it is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and then we're going to have to wrap up because we've been talking too much. There's not enough like weight or what's the word? Like, importance. Emphasis. There's not enough emphasis on how important approximations are, whether it's toward a decide. It's like back to that we were talking about growth, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like any growth in any area, whether it's a behavior, like effort, approximations. Like, like the goal is not to throw toys at people, and like now we're at a point of he's throwing toys, but not at people. Like,
Right. That's an improvement.
Yes.
Bryce.
An outburst, be difficult, be argumentative, whatever, instead of like they're really struggling.
Yeah.
Cow, but you said Dow, right? Yay.
Feels
Awesome.
good.
I'm going to take
Yep.
it. Let's praise that.
Yeah,
So you
that's
want to
great.
keep
Yep.
doing it.
Yeah. Like empowering
Yeah.
them. Anyways, but this has been great. We're going to have you back, Pam.
Thanks,
you.
Pam.
I'm trying to, so I guess, I mean, if anybody has questions about like early intervention stuff, how could they get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you want people
Or do
to
you
get in
want
touch
people?
with
I
you?
mean, maybe you don't.
Yeah. Can I get my email? Like, how do we,
Yeah, whatever you want.
should I just say it right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, people could email me with any, whether it's early intervention, just how to help your kid get access to services. Again, like right now I live in New Jersey, but I'd be happy to help in any way. So my email is Kotorac. I'm going to spell it KOTORAC .Pamela PAMELA @gmail.com.
Awesome.
All right, Pam.
Thanks,
Love
Pam.
You,
Thank
babe.
you. Love you. It was so great to be on the show. Thank you for
I
having me.
know.
This was so fun.
Okay. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hopefully, you know you're not alone and we're all in the trenches together.
We're always here, so reach out and let us know what's driving you nuts. We got you. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Little Brain Campaign on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Questions or topics you want us to tackle? Hit us up on all of our socials at the Little Brain Campaign. Keep trucking. You got this. We'll see you next week.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Remember, no one size fits all. Always consult a professional for personalized advice.